What's going on, YouTube? Now, in the world of cars, you are often left with the choice between style and practicality. But when the Civic hatchback came around, it set out to combine the two. Now for 2019, Honda continues to refine the hatchback formula with a few new features. Of course, we do want to especially thank our friends at Gates Honda in Richmond, Kentucky for giving us access to this fully loaded Civic hatchback in the really nice looking Sonic Gray Pearl color. So with all that said, let's see if this is the Civic to get. So as far as the styling is concerned, since this is the third model year of the hatchback model, we have not quite reached a refresh like in the case of the sedan. This, of course, has always had more aggressive styling than the sedan, including the fact that the grille is always blacked out, which is something the sedan just now added. The lower fascia is also larger and sportier looking, though the headlights do not change from the sedan. They are these premium full LED lights on the top end Sport Touring only, while the others come with halogen bulbs instead. And then finally, all but the base LX have fog lights. As far as the side profile, it is pretty similar to this sedan despite being 4 inches shorter. But around back, the design is significantly different. It looks very sporty, with not one but 2 standard spoilers, and then an aggressive lower bumper with 2 center mounted exhaust pipes if you choose one of the sport trims. The only part of the looks that are like the sedan are the taillights, which share the same boomerang shape. But overall, you can certainly say that the Civic hatch does not let the extra practicality cramp its style. Now moving on to the wheels, there are 3 varieties to pick from. We have the most stylish ones, the 18-inch contrast alloys that come on both this Sport Touring and the cheaper Sport model. Both your EX trims share 17-inch alloys, and the base LX has its own 16-inch alloys. And then heading up to the mirrors, they are body colored on all models, and heated on the EX and above. If you look over at the passenger side, you'll also notice the lane watch camera, which I'll demo a little later on the inside. Speaking of lane watch, safety is where the biggest exterior change occurs, since Honda Sensing is now standard on every model. This is a big change since this suite was previously reserved for only the top end model. So now lane keeping assist, adaptive cruise control, collision mitigation braking, and auto high beam headlights come on even the base LX. Finally, ending here at the fuel tank, every hatch has a pretty small 12.4 gallon tank. Thankfully though, when combined with the excellent fuel economy, it is still good for 422 miles of range. On the sport trims, premium fuel is recommended to get a few extra horsepower over the other trims. But anyways, that sums up the exterior. So now let's go ahead and see what's changed inside the cabin. So on the Civic hatch, you'll find Honda Smart Entry System on the EX and up. As you can see, it does come with their nice key fob, as well as a remote start system. And then to get inside the vehicle itself, all you gotta do is reach behind the handle since there is a sensor. My apologies for all this wind. Alright, so coming inside the cabin of the 2019 Honda Civic hatchback, as you can see, it does keep basically the same design as last year, but there are a couple modifications which I will point out as we go through the review. Now as far as your color and material combinations, Honda keeps it pretty simple. So on your LX, Sport, and EX, you'll have cloth seating. And then when you go up to the EXL, or this Sport Touring, that's when you get the leather seating. And then as far as your color options across all of the trims, you've got the choice between black or ivory. Now turning over here to your door trim, Honda does finish this very nicely. You have a leather pad here for your arm to rest on, as well as a nice leatherette above it with some color contrast stitching. Even the top part is padded. And on most of the trims, you'll find this fake carbon fiber trim, which looks pretty nice. As far as your windows, they are one-touch automatic for the driver and the passenger. And you will notice here on the Sport Touring, as well as the regular Sport, you do have the aluminum pedals. As far as the seats, these are 8-way power adjusting. That comes on the EXL and the Sport Touring. Otherwise, it's 6-way manual. And then, like I was saying, this is the leather seating. You do have really nice color contrast stitching. And I particularly like this little insert here on the back and on the pad, since it basically mimics the same design as the carbon fiber trim that's on the dashboard and the door trims. It just makes for a nice look. So looking around the cabin, like I said, the design continues to be pretty much the same, which does mean it has very high quality materials for the class. So the only thing that's hard up here on the dashboard is this little area above the gauges here. But as far as the rest of the dash, it is all soft touch plastic. Driving down to the middle, you got some of this fake carbon fiber trim, and then you get some more soft touch plastic with a stitching detail that runs through it. As far as your lower areas, these are hard touch, but everything fits together extremely well. There's no panel gaps or anything like that. And you do have a nice leather strip through here, which makes for a really nice place to rest your arm. I believe standard across all the models, you do have push button start. What you're looking at here is our 7-inch touch display. This is not standard on all the models, since your LX and your Sport will come with a smaller 5-inch display. That's a little bit different than how it's arranged in the sedan. So like I already mentioned, the Honda Sensing suite of safety features is now standard across all of the Civic hatchbacks. So to go along with that, that now means that all the Civic hatchbacks have these advanced digital gauges here, since they do allow you to make adjustments to those safety systems. So we can just scroll through various different settings, all the standard affair of information. You even have some cool things here, like our turbo boost. Just gives it a little extra sporty touch, since this is the sportier hatchback model. Coming back to the steering wheel, it is electric power assisted, and you will find this leather wrapped steering wheel nicely included on all but the very base LX model. As far as your buttons here, you got your standard affair of audio, phone, and voice controls, including this button for your multifunction display. And then on this side, you've got your controls for the standard adaptive cruise control. Up top here, you will find rain sensing wipers on the Sport Touring, as well as some paddle shifters that comes on the Sport and the Sport Touring trims. And then as far as the wheel itself, it's kind of hard to see, but there is an adjustment down there for tilt and telescoping, and then heating is not available currently. Now I did also mention this on the outside, but I'll show you what it looks like here on the inside. The lane watch camera. So basically whenever you use the right turn signal, you can see that the camera attached to the right mirror activates and shows you your blind spot and gives you little distance markers right there, so you can kind of gauge the distance. This is just a different alternative to blind spot monitoring basically, but it works pretty much the same. Now moving on to interior storage, the Civic hatch continues to be one of the best offerings in the class. Now Honda, this is a very innovative setup here. Basically each component slides, so you can slide this armrest back and forth, you can lift it up, and you've got 2 layers of sliding trays, so you get this small sliding tray here, and you've got your sliding cup holders. And when you move all of them out of the way, you even have another cup holder down here in the bottom, and you have all this storage back here. You also see you have a USB port down there in the bottom. Now, in addition to that, you have another really large bin right here. And then the coolest thing is you have this gigantic center pass-through, which is very, very uncommon for a vehicle in this class. Actually, I think it might be the only vehicle in this class that's got this. And in there, you've got your charging USB port, which has a little adapter, passes the wire up here so it's more easily accessible. But overall, this is probably the best amount of storage in the class. Honda has been able to give us that amount of storage, despite still having a traditional shifter. So it is very simple. You're just going to pull back for drive. You can pull back once more to activate the sport mode. And then if you have the sport or the sport touring, that will allow you to start using the paddle shifters. Heading into reverse, you will find a standard backup camera across all models. All of them are going to have the 3 different angles, which is a nice touch, but you will have to go up for the EX or up to get the dynamic guidelines. And then back behind the shifter, you will find an electronic parking brake and a brake hold feature, as well as an additional drive mode, which is your Econ mode for best efficiency. Now heading on up here to the climate controls, this is an area that's seen some changes this year. So it is dual zone automatic on the EX and up, and single zone automatic on your other trims. That stays the same. However, what you will notice is new for 2019, we now have some fan speed buttons. This was something that we've complained about in the past. You used to have to click the climate button to get to the fan speeds, but now we have the buttons here to adjust that. So the only thing that's up here in the screen now exclusively is going to be your zones. The rest of it is represented physically right here. And on the EX and up, you will also find 3-stage heated seats. Now, as far as another 2019 change, we now have a volume knob. That's another complaint that Honda has addressed this year. But as far as the actual audio system itself, it is the same as last year. So there's several different tiers of audio systems. I won't go through them all, just add a text box in. But as far as this one, we have the top end one, as you would expect, a 540 watt, 12 speaker premium audio system. So let's go ahead and take a listen. Sound quality of this top-end system is pretty good. But anyways, that brings us here to our Honda Link system. So we'll go ahead and take a quick look. Won't spend a whole bunch of time on it since this is the same system as we've seen in Honda Civics for a while. We do remain on the older style Honda Link system for 2019, so you'll notice we have the older style graphics. But as far as the actual functionality, it is pretty much the same as the new system. So we just have several different pages we can flip through with different applications on them. You will notice here on the Sport Touring we have the Garmin based navigation system. But of course, if you go for a lower trim level, as long as it has the 7-inch display, you will have what is called the smartphone connection, which is both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So of course that does allow you to use Google Earth Maps or Apple Maps, Waze, anything you want to instead, so you don't really have to feel like you need to pay for the integrated navigation system. But anyways, that's the basic information about the Honda Link system. However, we do have a dedicated Tech Help video if you want to learn more about the system. A link to that will be provided in the video description. Now moving on up from there, we do have an auto dimming mirror here on the Sport Touring as well as the EXL, but there are no HomeLink universal remotes on this. And then moving back here, you will find this power moonroof. It's actually standard on the EX and up, so that's a very nice feature to be included since a lot of the rivals make you pay extra for the moonroof even on the higher end trim levels. But overall, there's really nothing to complain about with the cabin of the Civic. It continues to be one of the best cabins in the class, and it's just really nice that Honda listens to the complaints, even if they're small things, and they each year make little refinements just to make this a better package. Alrighty, so now I'll go ahead and hand it off to my brother Mason, who will finish up the rest of the cabin.
Alright, so coming around to the Civic hatchback's rear seat, you're going to find a good amount of space at 36 inches of rear legroom and 37 inches of rear headroom. Now to put that in comparison to the sedan, it is a little bit less though. But turning over to the door trim on the Sport Touring model, it is really nicely appointed. So we do have a leather padded armrest, as well as leather above that with stitching. And you do have a power window. It is not automatic though. Now coming down, you do have a bottle holder. And the seat itself is of course a nice design, and it is very soft. Now here in the center of the Civic hatchback, you are not going to find any vents or anything, but on this fully loaded Sport Touring model, you will find 2-stage heated rear seats. Now in addition to that, you do also have a nice armrest that folds down with cup holders inside. And up top you do have your lighting, as well as a really premium feeling headliner and a assist grip. Now as far as the rear legroom is concerned, like I mentioned, this is a little bit smaller than the Civic sedan. And behind Drew's position, I'm still not going to have any issues though. I still have about 6 inches of rear legroom, and my feet can easily slide up under the seat. And sliding over here, with the seat scooted all the way back, I still have a couple inches of rear legroom, which is very impressive. Now coming around to the trunk of the Civic hatchback, all you have to do to open it is locate this button under the lid, and it does open right up. Now once inside the trunk of the hatchback Civic, this is actually my favorite part about the car because it adds a lot of functionality as well as good style. So you will find 25 cubic feet behind the second row seats, and if you fold them, you will have 46 cubic feet, which is obviously a vast improvement over the regular Civic sedan. And you really aren't going to have any trouble fitting anything back here. I actually have a friend who hauls a lawnmower in the back of the Civic hatchback, so there is plenty of room for any and all of your needs. Now it is finished very nicely back here. You do have a nice floorboard, and up underneath of the floor, you do have a spare tire, as well as a few cubbies off to the side. Now in addition to that, we do have a cargo cover as well, which is a nice touch. And coming over to the passenger seat, it is 4-way power adjusting on the Sport Touring model only. And as far as the features in front of the passenger, you have a nice glove box. It is not dampened though. It does have plenty of room inside. And up top you do have a sun visor with a mirror and light. It does also detach and extend. But anyway, guys, that sums up all of the rear areas of this car. So now let's go ahead and get on the road and see how this Civic hatchback performs.
Alright, so let's go ahead and talk a bit about the powertrains. So for 2019, the setup for the powertrains continues to be a little bit different than in the sedan. So you still do have the same engine available, the 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder, but unlike the regular sedan, you don't have the base 2-liter engine. So that means even your LX and your Sport, they also come with the higher power turbo engine. So that 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder produces 174 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. Or if you go for the Sport model or this Sport Touring, the power gets bumped up to 180 horsepower. In most cases, it's going to be paired with a continuously variable transmission. But if you go for the Sport, you actually do have an available 6-speed manual. And one change for 2019 is that the LX is no longer available with the 6-speed manual. And then finally, when it comes to fuel economy, it does rate very well as you would expect. So you're rated at 31 city, 40 highway, 34 combined for all the trims except for your 2 Sport trims. Those have larger wheels, and so therefore the mileage is reduced a bit to 30 city, 36 highway, 32 combined. If you go for the one trim that continues to have the manual transmission, then you'll get 33 combined. But anyways, now let's go ahead and take this for a quick spin. So first taking off and getting up to speed in the 2019 Civic hatchback. Power feels pretty good. This is definitely better than what I'd consider average for the class in terms of power. I definitely had no problem getting up to 55 just then, and a very reasonable amount of time, especially like I said, for a vehicle in this class. They're usually not gonna knock your socks off. The thing I always notice as soon as I get behind the wheel of a Civic is just how great the steering is. I mean, it is definitely uncharacteristically good for the class. This is probably the best steering setup in the class. This and the Mazda 3 are definitely the class leaders in this respect. I mean, it's so fast responding. It's got really just a great heft to it. You know, this is a class where most of the cars, you know, very light, not particularly enthusiastic vehicles. This here really just feels sporty. You know exactly where the wheels are placed. Honestly, I just can't say enough good things about the steering setup. And then just the overall really agile feel of this car. I mean, it's really buttoned down. Of course, as many of you know, if you've subscribed or seen any previous videos, Mason has a 2018 Elantra, and we just recently, just a few days ago, drove a 2020 Elantra. The Elantra is more on the luxury side of things. It's a softer riding, more comfort oriented. This here, though, especially in the hatchback, which kind of amps up the sportiness even just a little bit more than the sedan, this is really a very athletic feeling vehicle. Like I said, this is on the sport side of things for sure.
Yeah, and I do want to mention, you know, like he was talking about, from the Elantra, you sit a lot lower to the ground in this vehicle, and you almost feel like you're in like a little bit of a sports car here. And like he said, you know, you can go around these corners. I mean, you can drive pretty fast around these corners because this car is so agile and buttoned down, where 99% of this class, you know, like the Corolla and stuff, you are definitely not going to be able to do that in this class.
Yeah, like I said, you know, going down a country road like this, and a lot of vehicles in this class would not particularly be an enjoyable experience. I mean, but this is thoroughly enjoyable. I really am enjoying this. Of course, as you know, we are in a lot of different types of cars, including things that are a lot more powerful, a lot more expensive. But this is actually a very enjoyable car to drive. It feels plenty peppy, and like I said, the agility of it is just fantastic. Have already kind of adjusted, but indeed the Civic Hatch does ride a little bit harder than what I say is average for the class, so it's something to keep in mind. But like I said, really the overall balance here, I think, is a very good one, because it's certainly not uncomfortable or anything. Yeah. So it's not like your rock hard suspension. They just tighten things up a little bit.
Well, you can tell it just has a sportier vibe to it, even
Absolutely.
From the passenger seat. You can tell, like I said, you sit lower, and you can feel that you can push this car a little bit more than you would most in the class.
Now, as far as the CVT is concerned, it's a very good one. It's definitely unobtrusive in just cruising around town. It gives you the power immediately. I definitely don't feel any rubber band effect or any type of lagging sensation, which is definitely good because we do have a CVT and a turbo, so it's a testament to how well both of those work in coordination with each other. We'd also have a sport mode available on this car, so we can just take the gear lever and bring it back to the sport. See if that makes any changes. Really, the main thing this is going to be doing is just increasing the sensitivity of the throttle. But it does make it feel more spunky.
I'm not sure if it's simulating gears. I guess it doesn't really look like it is.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't have a type of simulating effect like some CVTs do. We do have paddle shifters here in the Sport Touring and the Sport, so we can kind of go through. It looks like, let's see,
7.
Yeah, 7 simulated gears. It's very responsive to that. Obviously, you know, it is a simulation, but even at that, a lot of simulations are very unrealistic. They don't respond to the paddles very well, but this seems to be doing that. When you go start shifting with the paddles, they actually let you rev it out a little bit, which is certainly fun. And really, all in all, that's kind of just the all-encompassing image of this car. It's fun, and you can't really say that about a lot of the cars in this class. They have a tendency to go towards the more basic transportation, and I think that's what makes the Civic stand out, and that's why the Civic always sells so well, is because it mixes some fun in there. This is an affordable vehicle, but Honda's not making you sacrifice having a little fun, having some cool styling, to have that affordability and fuel efficiency. So really, it's a great overall package.
Now, as far as the pricing is concerned for the 2019 Honda Civic hatchback, you aren't going to see very much of a price increase over the regular sedan model. So for the very base LX model, that's going to start at $22,370. Now, if you want to move up to the sporty styling in the Sport model, that's going to be $23,050, and that is with the CVT transmission. Now, if you want to go one rung up to get more luxury, that's the EX, and that's going to be $23,750. The EXL is $26,250, and finally you have this model, which has all of the luxury amenities as well as the Sport exterior, the Sport Touring, and that's going to come in at $28,750. Now, as you probably know, Honda doesn't really do options or anything. So all you have to do is add in the $920 destination charge, and this particular model as equipped is $29,670, which is definitely on the higher end of a Civic Spectrum, but definitely keep in mind how much space you're getting in the Civic hatchback model, as well as the absolutely cool looking exterior, especially in this cool paint color. There's really not an option like it in this class, and it really is a very unique choice. Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed watching this in-depth look at the 2019 Honda Civic Hatchback Sport Touring. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.